You evolved over a period of billions of years, but what if we could make new life from scratch in just a few minutes? Sounds impossible, but people have already been doing this for years. This is Trubbish, the Trash Bag Pokémon. Most people are quick to dismiss it because how can a man-made object suddenly come to life? However, reality is weirder than most people realize. So today, I'll show you how Trubbish could exist and what it means for the future of life. According to the Pokédex, Trubbish were created as the product of a chemical reaction between a bin bag and industrial waste. Nobody has been able to reproduce this reaction intentionally in a controlled setting, but there is now a large population of wild Trubbish in the wild due to their alarming ability to reproduce sexually. Scientists who studied Trubbish were placed in a coma for up to a week after inhaling the gas they belched. People who litter are often hospitalized because they unwittingly inhaled the poison of a Trubbish after finding that they had discreetly followed these litterers into their homes. Wherever Trubbish is, the sludge Pokemon and the poison gas Pokemon are never far behind. They all release the same noxious fumes, so they are all immune to the poison. If you ever catch the unmistakable stench of one of these gatherings, do not bother choosing a direction to evacuate. By then, it's already too late. You'd better bring a Pokemon that can fly or prepare to inhale your regrets. You might be wondering whether any of this is possible. Specifically, can new life spontaneously come into existence from chemical processes alone? Why do animals follow people? Could our trash kill us? Today, let us answer these questions as we try to determine how life can be born from decay. Can Trubbish exist? Let's look at the facts. Namely, is it possible for a chemical reaction to create new life? Of course, life on Earth probably began this way. According to the primordial soup theory, when the Earth was less than 1 billion years old, a chemical reaction took place between molecules that were not alive to create life. You need to understand that the Earth was a lot different before. Back then, the planet had very little oxygen. There were no plants or animals. A thick haze of methane and ammonia covered the entire globe. Violent lightning strikes, rays of ultraviolet light, and volcanic eruptions constantly battered the surface. This made the ocean warm and active with chemical activity. In these conditions, inorganic molecules reacted to become organic molecules such as sugars, lipids, and amino acids. Eventually, these building blocks of life accumulated in the oceans to form a rich soup. As time continued to pass, some of these molecules reacted and developed the ability to replicate. But it was a work in progress. However, this was when evolution by natural selection began to take place, as those molecules that were better adapted to replicate overwhelmed the competition. And the rest, as it were, is history. Here is our first reality check. It is almost certainly possible for life to be born from inorganic products like those found in industrial waste. It typically takes energy like the energy from a lightning strike. Even without much energy, it is possible for inorganic products to behave in ways that mimic organic life. Chemobionics is the study of how lifelike structures can spontaneously grow from pure chemistry and physics. No biology involved. For instance, when a metal salt is dropped into a solution of negatively charged ions, the salt releases the positive metal ions to react with the negative ions. This reaction results in a membrane forming around a particle known as a seed. Due to the growing crystals being lighter than the solution around them, they rise. However, they do not just simply rise. No. These structures work because of a special kind of diffusion called osmosis. Osmosis is the diffusion of water across a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute region to a more concentrated region. The higher the difference in concentrations, the greater the drive for the water molecules to move. This causes the structure to swell and rupture as it rises to the top, as can be seen in this so-called chemical garden. This second reality check is even more compelling than the first, because it suggests that life does not even have to be organic. Or, at the very least, as the primordial soup theory suggested, life doesn't have to be made of bacteria or cells or anything typical. Anything unwanted or unusable can be described as waste. However, not all waste is man-made. When we breathe and respire, waste products exit our mouths in the form of carbon dioxide. Yet, to a plant, oxygen is the waste product. When life was just beginning to evolve, oxygen was toxic to practically all life. Now, for all intents and purposes, the reverse is true. Carbon dioxide, the waste product produced by all animals, is toxic in high concentrations. For instance, on August 12, 1986, a cloud of pure carbon dioxide rushed into a settlement in Cameroon with hurricane-level speeds and killed nearly 2,000 people in an instant. What happened was that a nearby lake, right beside a volcano, accumulated carbon dioxide from beneath the earth. Carbon dioxide is heavy and stays at the bottom of the lake, but the concentration eventually became so high that a giant bubble rose to the surface and unleashed a massive plume in the valley below. Are Trubbish really just putting people to sleep with their gases? For now, let's fix our final reality check. Waste products can certainly kill us. This includes actual trash, as the 2017 accident in Ethiopia demonstrated, when a 50-year-old mountain of trash suddenly cascaded like an avalanche and buried an entire shanty town, burying over 100 people alive and asphyxiating dozens more. Asphyxiation? Asphyxiation. It's where a person is starved of oxygen and loses consciousness or dies. I get it now. That's probably happening when someone inhales Trubbish's fumes. That's right. Although we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, let us establish how a trash bag became a living creature in the first place. Realistically, it's more likely the contents of the trash bag evolved life, not the trash bag itself. You may already be comfortable with the idea that there are pathogens, such as bacteria and fungi, that reside in the bag and cause foods to decay, for instance. After constantly being sprayed with some kind of industrial waste product, the building blocks of a new kind of life emerged. It is possible those building blocks were incorporated into the genetic material of the bacteria and fungi, or that those building blocks started to replicate by themselves. If the latter is true, it would mean Trubbish are an alien life form. For the fact fact that Trubbish are able to breed with a mismatch of object-based Pokemon, this is likely to be the case. Trubbish may move like the life you and I know, but they may be made of molecules that simply exhibit lifelike properties, such as the ones in the chemical garden I showed you earlier. Are you saying they have somehow got organic and inorganic life in them? Should this come as a surprise? I only stated that the trash bag is completely inorganic. The bacteria and fungi inside them are capable of digesting a wide variety of nutritive foods and non-nutritive substances like plastics. Really, I should say non-nutritive for us, since the bacteria and fungi living in Trubbish obviously can digest them. Also, what exactly do you mean by exhibiting lifelike properties? It can follow orders, consume food, and literally give birth. How do you know what they are really doing? Just like Kamala can apparently follow orders in their sleep, Trubbish would be able to follow orders even if they aren't conscious. When they follow orders, they are possibly detecting the subtlest variations in vibrations in the air, triggering a sequence of events to occur. When I say lifelike properties, I'm referring to such behaviors that resemble life. As a reminder, chemobionics relies on nothing more than positive and negative ions that trigger a chemical reaction that results in the ability to grow, move, divide, and self-repair. We can extend this logic to a chemical system which may be empowered or controlled by genuine organic life, let's not forget, that can behave as if it had a consciousness. Furthermore, the whole system would be self-sustaining, just like a true living body. I don't know, is that likely? It can even produce gas that requires bed rest for a week. Maybe if you recalled what I told you about muck not too long ago, you would be more convinced. The gas it produces could easily be the same fumes that cause asphyxiation for those people in Ethiopia. The so-called landfill gas is a mixture of gases such as carbon dioxide and methane that are produced by bacteria and fungi. Trubbish would produce the same mixture but at a small scale. These gases are not harmful per se. Rather, when someone breathes the gases from a Trubbish, those gases push oxygen out of the way, resulting in a loss of consciousness due to the inability for the brain to get enough oxygen. The reason it requires so long for someone to recover from that is because of how long it takes for brain cells to recover. As a result, someone could look and feel fine, but they would still be hospitalized or prescribed to stay in their bed for a long time due to the fact that their condition has not fully improved. So, can you believe it now? So I looked at my notes on Mock and it makes more sense. However, why are Mock attracted to Trubbish if they're just releasing carbon dioxide and methane? Aren't these gases odorless? I'm impressed. Yes, they are completely odorless. Many people think methane smells, but that's only because methane is mixed with chemicals that have smells, allowing us to detect gas leaks. Remember though that carbon dioxide and methane are just some of the products released by the bacteria and fungi. However, muck can't smell anyway, so they must simply be able to detect the panoply of compounds from landfills, hence why it's called landfill gas. Okay, I think I'm convinced now. Great. Wait, do Trubbish die? Can they die? I didn't consider that yet, but I'm back to being unconverted, reverted. But there are animals that seem to never die. For instance, the so-called immortal jellyfish is able to reverse its life cycle if stressed. Can you go back? Which Pokemon did you say that was? It's not a Pokemon, it's a real animal. A hydrozoan, to be precise, with the scientific name Turritopsis dohrnii. Wow. If only I had that power. Not so fast. Wait, you heard me? If we had not evolved modern medicine, the average human would only live for about half as long as humans do today. So we already have a glimpse of that power. I want more. I want never gets. Besides, even if you could live forever, you would certainly eventually die because of diseases or because something or someone kills you. The reason almost no other animal seems to get cancer is literally that they don't live long enough. Then, what happens when Trubbish die? Do they just become like how they were before they had life? Indeed, Trubbish don't physically change throughout their lifetimes, so they look almost the same before and after death. Almost. The trash bag is going to look more worn out and will start to leak. Slowly, the whole bag and its contents will be reduced to a thick sludge. The circle of life. It's a very complicated looking circle that's constantly changing. It only ever seems to get bigger. That's not the only thing getting bigger. Many people used to keep personal Trubbish as bins, but a new cross-sectional study has shown that constant exposure to Trubbish is linked to an increase in all causes of mortality in both humans and Pokemon. When the study was announced on global news, it resulted in millions of Trubbish being freshly released into the wild, which caused the numbers of trash-loving Pokemon to increase worldwide. This has measurably reduced the size of landfills, yes, but these concentrated mobile waste facilities can result in instant fatalities. For this reason, international teams of researchers have been working to find alternatives to the chemicals used industrially to try and reduce the rate at which Trubbish are formed. Alternatively, certain regions have been introducing genetically modified versions of these trash-loving Pokemon that have a better capacity to work alongside humans. Trubbish are clusters of organic life embedded in a self-sustaining system of inorganic life. Into waste is breathed life, yet they breathe sickness and death. Though they never die by old age, they are just as likely to die from other causes as many other living creatures. Over many years of industrial waste leaking unassumingly onto forgotten garbage bags, life seemingly evolved. Who knows what life might be forming right now? Life does not just have to be established on Earth, of course. Can we even begin to understand truly alien life forms?